I had to warm up my hands because the energy is just flowing so well today. My name is Air, and we're going to talk about struggle and success and the subconscious rewiring of your beliefs to be able to get you where you want to go faster without all of this getting stuck, this undeservingness, all this negative emotions. And if you are someone that grew up very similar to me, you know what I'm talking about. So, first and foremost, again, my name is Air. I'm the CEO of NeuroSelf. I'm down here in Miami. I also work in Brazil, and I help rewire your brain. Like whether it's through hypnosis, whether it's one-to-one sessions, which we have different packages for that, but mostly out of like energy work and being able to meet you one-on-one and be able to understand how we've been programmed. There's a big part of NeuroSelf where I always say, you are not broke, you are just programmed, and we can fix that. We can rewire that baby. We can totally get you from $0 to 100K months. We can get you from 20K months to 20K like weeks. We can do so many different things when it comes to business and emotions. But we can also really look into your relationships, look into your health. I am known in Brickle as the mind and body expert. And that doesn't come from getting six pack abs. That comes from the mindset of understanding what are my beliefs about myself? How do I have this self concept? And the six pack abs come as a result. So, with that, I really want to talk about something that I felt this morning and flow woke me up. I am not somebody that glorifies waking up at 4 a.m. I love my beauty rest. I love a good night's sleep. I have a great night ritual, stick to it. And when I'm waking up at 4 a.m., it's because something exciting is happening. And in this case, something was exciting because it was putting me into a flow state where I was able to kind of digest this message for you. And as soon as I was done with my meditation, I even took a bath this morning and did like a full on rose ritual, love, herbal bath. And then I took my walk. I got to see the sunrise. Everything that you could possibly want for your morning, I was able to do. And that put me into this excellent flow state where after my journaling, I put everything away. I have my notes right here. You're watching the virtual. And I noticed, like, I have to do this now. If I don't do this now, it's not going to have the same energy if I wait. So I haven't even showered. I haven't got ready for my clients today yet. Today also has some networking events with the chambers. So I haven't done any of that because this was so important to be able to come on and share with you that I wasn't going to miss the opportunity. So if you made it this far through my little 4 minute spill, thank you. Thank you for your energy. Thank you for your time. I'm so grateful. I promise you it's worth it. I promise what I have to say today could be the difference between you struggling your way through this Tuesday or Wednesday or wherever you're finding this in your journey to being able to actually have success with no shame, no guilt, no fear, no limiting beliefs, nada. And I try to tell all of my people, and I'm going to tell you because now you're my people, that you have no enemies in this world except for these three big ones. Your enemies in this world are, I wanted to say shame, but it's not it. Interesting how that came out though. So today we're going to add shame because somewhere in there I felt like it was necessary. But what I normally say is the three big enemies in your life are fear, doubt, and limiting beliefs. But today we're going to add shame. And I think that's because it really resonates with the message and it's at the top of my heart, it's at the top of my mind. And I feel like, okay, we should add shame. But overall, let's dive into it. So, If you're anything like I was growing up, you were told that if you were going to be successful, you were going to have to earn it. You were going to have to work for it. Like, I remember I started working at 8 years old. I was a baby when I started working, and I was told to perform, to smile, to show up, to, razzle dazzle them, right? I grew up in the modeling industry and I grew up in the entertainment industry and I grew up in an entertainment environment, like a town, a city. It brought me all over the world. So this was very normal for my childhood. I was also taught a lot of things about if you are able to get through the struggle, that you'll be able to be on top and people are going to be very proud of you and they're going to love you and accept you and all of these different narratives. And what ended up happening is somewhere along the line, I started glorifying struggle instead of actually relating to success. And this is such a common downfall for a lot of people. And I know I'm not alone because I've been able to help hundreds of people. And this is a very common thing that comes up. Like, I would say at least 80% of the people that are high achievers, especially in big cities like New York, LA, Miami, London, Sydney. I've worked in all of these places. And this concept of earning your keep, earning your business, earning your right to be on top, this Hercules type of method has really been a profound myth throughout our lives. And I love debunking myths to be able to help you rewire your brain, your program, to be able to help you succeed. So let's succeed today. Let's rewire this. Let's really look at this at different angles and find out that your freedom is actually at the end of the tunnel. And I'm just here to guide you. Again, I believe that God lives within me. God lives within all of his creations. And I believe that we can definitely experience God in our lives as co creators. And this is my invitation to come and co create with me. So I am here just to guide you on the journey. That's what I do with my programs. That's what I do when I'm on stage. That's what I do when I'm on my one to ones. And I want to be able to do this with you today. So diving into what I've noticed is there's actually a few different reasons that I have heard people come up with whenever they talk about struggle and success. And these different reasons can relate to business, they relate to relationships, they relate to health. But I found that four of them were very common. Now, this is kind of my own little self case study, but I've had enough patients or clients to be able to be like, okay, I see a theme. I see a reoccurring theme when it comes to what people subconsciously believe about themselves. And when I say subconscious, it's very intentful. When we consciously think about struggle and success, we can see that some people don't have to struggle and they have all the money in the world and they are super healthy and they seem to always be in healthy, great relationships. Nothing ever bad is happening and they're just thriving. And we can conceptualize that. We are smart cookies over here. We can really see how, some people win the lottery and live happily ever after. And we can also see how people, inherit money or it seems like their business was just a success overnight. And we're like, that is so interesting. So we know it's possible, but some type of hang up happens. I found this out first, when I was actually very young, for a season of my life, I worked in a call center. And this is something that not a lot of people know because honestly, I was only there for 4 months and I got bored. And I'm going to tell you why right now. I worked at this call center and I know first and foremost, if you work in a call center, there's going to be some cold calls, and that makes a lot of people uncomfortable. Sales does tend to make people uncomfortable, and this is where I learned to overcome that. Again, I believe, 18 or 19 at the time, again, super young. And it was one of the only jobs to this day that I actually had that wasn't like entrepreneurship. Like, I work for myself now. I cannot remember a time where I worked for other people unless it was through my practium or it was through volunteer work, which I am totally there. Like, I love that. So, with that, I remember working in this cold call center and selling cell phone. And actually, to, like, kinda show my age a little bit, I wasn't even selling cell phones all the time. Most of the time, I was selling hotspots. And if you were my, like, younger crowd, just know that that was like a Wi-Fi box. So, like, yeah, I just showed my age, pretty proud of my age. I think my skin looks great for my age. I think I look great for my age, so no shame in that game. So, going back, so I noticed that day 1, we all had the same we went into this conference room looking thing. We all had individual computers. We were lined up. It reminded me so much of like high school classrooms and how like everybody is in alignment and there's a teacher, there's a front, whiteboard, and that was our trainer. And they were teaching us all the same sales tactics. They were teaching us about the different personality types for sales, the entertainer, the detective, the counselor, and the last one I can remember was, like, the boss energy, but I cannot remember what it was called. But, like, think of, like, the authoritative type of person. So there was just, like, 4 different personality types of, like, sales and, like, how do you sell to these different personality types? So a lot of psychology looking back in it, and obviously, it imprinted on my brain enough to where I still carry it, you know, decade plus later, maybe a couple decades plus later, but a decade plus later, and it still impacted me to the point where I remember it and I was influenced by it. But I also remember listening and observing for like 3 days. It was 3 days of hardcore training in this environment. They put us out on the sales floor. We were in all these little cubicles. I remember being super lonely because I don't like cubicles. I like open rooms and communication and being able to share ideas, and that's just my vibe. So we are now on the sales floor and we're working and we're told to like be the top performer, be the best, and you'll be celebrated, be the best, and we'll give you prizes, be the best, and your name will be up in lights at this call center. Plus you make money, right? Like, that's why we're in sales, is to make money for them. So we start working and there are some records and I notice them and I start calling people and I'm closing deals. And I'm obeying the formula. I'm not breaking any rules. I'm on the phone. They can't even see me. They don't even feel my energy in the sense of like being in person. All they hear is me being on the phone with them. And again, I'm like much younger, so I probably have this more like energetic, teenager girl type of vibe on the phone. I don't even sound like a serious business person on the phone. So what happens is a month later, I'm number 1 on the board. And not just number 1 from like the sales training group that I was in. I'm number 1 in the whole company, which was like 300 people, which was super interesting and got me noticed real quick by a lot of people. Now, please note, I was working part-time because I was also getting 3 degrees at the local university. So, like, I wasn't even a full-time person, and yet I surpassed everybody on the board. So that got me kind of noticed. And I, didn't pay much attention to it. Again, I am in school. I actually had 2 other jobs at the time. Like, I was just like, "Okay, let's do this, in, out, in, out." Wasn't necessarily enjoying the job. So, what happened is month 2, month 3, month 4 happens, and actually, even before month 4 happens, month 3 happens, and they're like, "Okay, you're still number 1, but you're also breaking your own records." Like, "Who are you, kid?" And I remember I got pulled into the office because they record all of the calls, and they are listening to my calls, and they actually started using my calls in the training that I honestly just experienced. I'm not even at 90 days yet. I haven't had my 90-day review. They had actually brought me into the management office before my 90 days to ask me, like, "What's up? We wanna talk to you." Because they're listening to my calls, and my calls don't necessarily have this, like, profound difference compared to other people's calls. They noted that, I sounded happy, that I listened, that I did the sales scripts. They noted that I seemingly did everything the same exact way as my peers did. And they actually came to me and they asked me, "What do you think is the difference? Like, tell us, what are you thinking when you're on the call with these people? What are you thinking before you call these people? And what are you thinking after you call these people?" And I'm just, a little girl at this point, and I'm like trying to say the right answer. I'm gonna be honest with you, I had a people pleasing face. And I'm trying to say the right answer to them, and I experience this, like, profound guilt or shame. Ooh, that's where the shame came from, right here, of me trying to share my experience. Because remember, I don't enjoy the job, but I don't necessarily wanna lose the job. And for some reason in my mind back then, I was fearful that they were gonna fire me for being too successful. That was another thing I had to overcome, the fear of success. But here I was, in this meeting with, 3 of my bosses. 2 of them were my boss's bosses, and I hadn't even met them. And they're curious about me, and they're like, "Okay, please talk to us. Tell us what's going." And I tried to be as forthcoming as possible. And I told him, I was like, "Okay, well, I did the training. I really, I enjoyed the training, but I also, was really bored during the training, to be honest with you. And I didn't necessarily think that it needed to be 3 days. I thought it could be probably like 1 day and it would have been fine. And I would have been able to go on the sales floor. And, I don't really like your scripts. I obey the scripts because, this is your company and, you obviously created these for a reason, but like there's a couple of things that feel awkward. So I try to like say them, but like I try to say them my way. And they stopped me and they're like, "Air, we are not trying to correct you. We are trying to learn from you. We don't want to like have you feel like a certain type of way in this meeting." And I should mention there was also an HR person at the meeting, probably for that exact reason because I was so new and they wanted to make sure that I felt comfortable. So after all of that, I told them, I was like, "Well, honestly, I don't care." And I don't, to this day, I remember saying that, "Honestly, I don't." And they're like, "Well, that wasn't the answer we expected. Like, we want you to care about your job. How do we get you to care more?" And they started offering me, like, all these incentives and, like, Starbucks gift cards and, you know, being able to be promoted in a different position, like, all these different things. Because they were now afraid to lose me is what I realized, especially looking back. But I told them, I was like, "Honestly, I don't care." I legitimately think that, hey, I have a service. They're either gonna want it or not want it. I believe that if they want it, they're gonna be happy that someone tells them about it. And I go in there knowing that it doesn't affect who I am, like if they say yes or no, and that I'm still great. I am still great. And, I call them and then I'm done. And then I find out what happens later. I don't even check the sales, I don't even care. I find out on my paycheck how well I did. And their faces, I could still see their faces till this day are just, like, astonished at my audacity of what I just shared with everybody. And that's when they were like, "Okay, we figured it out. We learned. We know the answer." And, of course, they didn't go and share that with anybody, right? That was a very private meeting, and About 2 weeks later, they offered me a position in a different part of, like, the business where I was, like, leading the sales team, and I'm supposed to teach the methods, and I realized that I wasn't in alignment with this job, that I didn't feel, like, passionately like I was going to make a big difference. So, instead, I did start teaching on, like, sales, but I told them, I was like, "I don't want that to be, like, my day-to-day job because I make more money when I'm on the phone than I am teaching sales." They did not like that, and they wanted to push me into this other position, and I was like, "Okay, well, now I feel uncomfortable." Again, I was a young girl, and I was just like, "I quit." You know, they were astonished when I quit. They were like, "Wait, what? Are you going somewhere else? Are you making more money elsewhere? Can we offer you more money?" And I was like, "No, I just don't wanna be here." But that was one of those moments where I realized that it doesn't necessarily mean you have to struggle to make money. In fact, it should be very effortless. It should be very easy flowing for you, and that you're not going to get punished for struggling. Like, people are not going to look bad or down on you for struggling. But that was my personal experience. And I want to move into a few of these other experiences that I heard people say. And, how does that relate to you? How can that help reprogram your brain? Again, we're getting to that freedom mindset. Okay. So the first one I hear a lot from both women and men, and it is the struggle makes for a good love story. Oh, my heart. The struggle makes for a good love story. Like, I've been there in the past, and every single person this is almost like a rite of passage where you believe that the struggle of this relationship will make for a good love story. And we're taught this in media, in movies, in books, fairy tales, like, you gotta have the struggle or it's not worth it. And that's not the case. In fact, what I've experienced in my more latter year relationships, especially like the ones I've like more recently had, is that love is actually the opposite of the struggle love story, like real love. Struggle is associated with heartbreak and pain and uncertainty and unsafety, right? These are not emotions that you wish to have in a love story. What you wish to have in a love story is safety and clarity and growth and affection and reassurance. These are all love story emotions. So many people, because of media or because of what they've witnessed, or they even try to justify. I remember trying to justify and rationalize myself into forgiving a man that was treating me terrible. And I would rationalize it with, oh, he's learning, or, somehow we get through this. It's a twin flame journey. Like, I would try to justify it. And I see that with other people in relationships. Again, this is not just females, it's also males or anyone that's in a relationship. They try to justify the struggle because of the happy ever after. But the truth is, you can have the happy ever after right from the bat, right from the start. And that is a good love story. That's a great love story. And I have that love story. And that is the love story I wish for all of my clients to have. So, immediately, if you can eliminate the idea that you have to struggle to have a good love story, you can actually start experiencing all of the positive emotions that come with being in a healthy, happy relationship. So, that was number 1, actually, when it came to, like, relationships that I heard. 2, people will like me more or find me more deserving for a struggle story. Hmm. Ooh, this reminds me, if you've been part of this tribe for a long time, I have this like overwhelming story where most people never experienced this. And it resulted in a book that became a bestseller called Model Stop Traffic, and me being on stage for 2 years talking about human trafficking, human rights, and safety in the modeling industry. That is a whole different story. I'm not here to tell that story, especially since it was a struggle story. I don't own it anymore in that way. And not because I'm ashamed. Ooh, there's that shame again. But like, because I know that it's such an honor to know my story. And it's even more of an honor to know who I am today with understanding that's a fragment of my journey. But let's get into this. Find you more deserving because of a struggle story. Everybody has something in their life. Everybody is a survivor of something. That was actually my mantra when I went on stage for my struggle story. We are all survivors of something, and we can all relate because of this. And that was a strong mantra for me for 2 years. And I had to rewire that. I had to reprogram my brain on that particular thing because the truth is that nobody needs to really know your struggle story. You don't have to share that. You really don't. It is an honor, and you can choose to discern what's good for you and what's bad. But what I've noticed as I've, matured is that when people hear a struggle story, it's because they want to relate to you. They want to feel seen and known by you on an intimate level. And that is a beautiful thing, but there's many ways to achieve that. And when people hear your struggle story, what they're actually hearing is that whatever they are going through, they'll be able to overcome it with hope. And that is very human nature. That is relatability. It is such a human nature, humanity thing to want to feel like you belong and that you have this intimate connection, even if it's pain, even if it's trauma to other people. But the truth is that you can be successful without that struggle or with that struggle, but you also can be successful without having to have the struggle story being told over and over by you, from you, to you, or to other people. You can share success and be deserving. When you go and you share the struggle story, you give people hope, and hope is gorgeous, but it is not your responsibility to give people hope. I'll say it again. It's not your responsibility to give people hope, especially if it's at any expense for you. What is a great source of hope is God. Like, there's so many Bible verses about comfort. God is comfort. God is like a mother comforting you. That's, I believe, Isaiah. Somebody quote me in the comments what Bible verse that is. But God is the comfort. God is hope. The Lord is, okay? So you don't have to have this struggle story and have to share it with people or even remind yourself of it to be successful. You learned those lessons, you experienced that already, you gained something from it because you chose that for whatever reason to be part of your story. And again, I have one of the hardest stories you could think of. But at the same time, I can look back and I can say, that's no longer my story. That's not what I lead with. People are actually these days, when I tell them, I'm the president of the Brickell Community Chamber, or I tell them I'm the CEO of this business at NeuroSelf, or I've opened up multiple companies and they've been successful. And, I owned Flying with Air for a decade, like all these different things. I lead with all these different things and they get shocked if they find out through Google or through another person, or they have heard of my books, or they saw me on stage, like they get shocked because they're like, oh my goodness, we didn't know this even happened to you. And that is the point. The point is now these days, I don't lead with struggle because the struggle isn't part of my success. The success stands alone. So you're not more deserving because you have a struggle story. In fact, the world doesn't work like that. You know that there's people that seem to have, like, everything kinda handed on a silver platter, and the universe just provides, the God provides, like, everything just seems to be so much falling into place for them, whether, again, it's inheritance, lottery, business success. relationship success, they married well, what have you, right? But the thing with this is that they weren't more deserving than you. They were. You were equally deserving. God loves all the children. You were all equally deserving. So what happened there, right? Your responsibility, again, is to like your own relationship with the world. As far as the world, I mean God, universe, however you relate. That energetic nature, that's your responsibility. So that struggle story doesn't make you more deserving. In fact, it's only inhibiting you because you keep replaying it in your brain. And when you replay things, especially hard memories in your brain, it's as if it's happening right now. So if you need to reprogram some of that with me, again, this is one of my specialties. It is something that has just exponentially grown my income, my lifestyle, my relationships, everything. And it came through reprogramming this part of my brain. Because if you affiliate yourself with a survivor and not a thriver, you're stuck in that energy. And I'm very much a thriver, and I love helping people cross that bridge. So, again, NeuroSelf, you can work with me. We can do something like that in as little as 6 sessions. Like, it's not a profound year-long experience. It is actually, if you're fully dedicated to those 6 sessions, we got you. Like, we can reprogram that. Done, right? Done. I love it when I snap my left because I remembered, or I should say, I learned at one point that that's like an energy shift when you like snap the left finger. Like, yeah, this is an energy shift. I forgot where I learned that from, but I do it all the time, and I'm like, this is mine now. This is the truth. So, number 3. People will find me less threatening if I have a struggle story, and therefore there will be less conflict in my life. Oh. One more time for those in the back. People will find me less threatening if I have a struggle story, and therefore it will be less conflict in my life. I'm an eldest daughter, and I'm the eldest daughter of a cautious father. Thank you, Taylor Swift. Totally relatable there. So, with that, I grew up trying to learn that conflict was bad and that I should avoid it at all. And that came with becoming a little bit of an avoidant attachment style for a while, and also trying to understand, okay, what does that mean for my life? I don't want to be in conflict. I want to be a peacemaker. I want to be collaborative. I want to, that people pleasing kind of like was bred out of that. And the point here was that conflict was preventing success because I was shrinking myself, not having my own boundaries, not sharing my own needs, and really trying to work my way up, but also self sabotaging. And the truth is, because with all of these, I'm trying to give you the truth, not just the lie, not just the myth. The myth, I'm saying it out loud and we're reprogramming right now. Actually, the longer that you're listening to this, the more that I am reprogramming you for success. And that's great because when you share a lie and then you rewrite it in real time and you process it and you feel the emotions with me, this is why I tell a lot of stories. It's very emotional. I'm reprogramming you right now through these experiences. So hold on tight with me because you're going to be so reprogrammed for success by the time that we're done. So now we're here and we are trying to avoid conflict because we think that it's threatening. If people find you threatening, they may try to attack you, right? If you're super successful, let's say you're number one in the city or number one on the billboards or on the charts, there's fear that can come from that because you're like, I don't want to lose it. I want to maintain it. And, I don't want, legal or XYZ battles, right? But the truth is that conflict isn't bad. Whoa, right? Coming from air, the masters, the clinical counseling, and, still pending, all that type of stuff. Like, you didn't expect that from me. But with that, I'm telling you, conflict isn't bad. Conflict is an invitation for change, an alert system that you can have something new happen in your life. Conflict is actually beneficial and required for the creation process. Whoa! If you think of it that way, you're like, okay, well, conflict's not bad, not afraid anymore. Let's go. Now, before you decide to, get out, your hammers and your swords and your guns, calm down. Conflict, when resolved in a healthy manner, breeds new collaboration, new beginnings, new levels of success. Now, if you go into conflict and you're like swinging, then we're going to have like damage and destruction and all the things that you fear. But when you're in conflict with somebody, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're fighting with somebody. In fact, that's not true at all. When you're in conflict, 9 times out of 10, I'll even say 9.9 times out of 10, it has nothing to do with the person that you're in conflict with. It has everything to do with a problem that you guys are both experiencing, and you need to make sure that you're processing the problem and not trying to attack the person. So we're talking about, this fear that comes with like being threatening. And that actually is more of a fear of being seen, being worthy, being noticed. And when you realize that it's safe to be seen, it's safe to be heard, it's safe to be number one, that allows you to not only get there, but maintain that energy. And knowing that conflict is a breeding ground for more success really allows your body to relax and fully experience what is happening to you, which is nothing short than a miracle that something is happening as beautiful as you being a high achiever and successful in your personal life as well as your professional life. So with that, I will put in a little one more nugget. If you find yourself in conflict with somebody and you're like, "Era, this is great, but like at the same time, this is like super painful and I don't want to experience this anymore." Well, let me help you out. When you see conflict with somebody else, the easiest way, and this is easy because it's fast, you'll see the results faster versus like being in a long-term struggle. But it's not easy in the sense of like, it requires a lot of ego death, okay? And a lot of accountability towards your own creation process. When you're in conflict with anybody, I invite you to go sit in a room by yourself, right? It could be something serious, or it could be like you had a fight with your sister. It could be something like, that involves business, whatever. You're in conflict. Go into a room by yourself. Don't take your cell phone in the room, okay? No distractions, just for a little bit. This will work if you do it right. I promise. If you try to cheat code your way into it, it's not going to work, okay? What I need you to do is I need you to close your eyes and I need you to see the person that you're in conflict with, okay? And what you need to do is rewrite the narrative internally in your mind. You need to see this person as the most wonderful person. You need to see this person that has, maybe even done you dirty, right? You need to see them apologizing, but also finding a resolution that is good for everybody, right? Peace in the sense of internally, we have moved past this, we have grown, we've actually both received what we needed from this, and everybody wins. That is the key to it. Everybody has to win in the end. And you need to sit in that. And you cannot be resistant. Like, you cannot cheat code your way into this and be like, error but this, error but that. No, no, no. Calm down. If you want this to work, like truly work, and I've seen it. I've seen legal battles go away. I've seen divorces resolve. I've seen so many like families come back together after emotional cutting ties based off of this. You have to see this person as you wish them to be presently in this moment with the purest intentions. This happened once through one of my clients, and it was beautiful because it happened so quick. In fact, it happened so quick that it shocked me even, and it's hard to shock me these days, but this was actually a couple of years ago, and I started working with this gentleman. He was super successful, actually in corporate America, and he was struggling with his father. His father, to him, he had wrote this narrative that he was like super stern and, old Southern Christian mentality, like just not flexible, old school, right? And the son was very different. The son was very open-minded, moved to the city, loved the idea of maybe opening up his own business, like super different energy. And it would cause conflict with them every single time they came home or they tried to work on something together. So originally, we were actually meeting together to help him go from 10K months to 20K months, which he did. Snapping again. But also, like, this came up one day in the session. He's just like, "Aaron, I cannot focus. Like, this is happening, XYZ." And I have permission, by the way, to share this story because it is such an amazing story. And with that, he goes, "This is happening and I can't." And I told him, "I need you to go in that room and I need you to do exactly the exercise I just shared with you." And he's like, "Okay, everything else you said is worse so far, so I'll try. I'll give you the benefit of the doubt." Sometimes all I need as your guide is the benefit of the doubt that you're going to actually try, right? Like all in try. So I also gave him a little bit of an extra homework assignment where I had him write it at night before he went to sleep. And that was kind of the package that we came up to together because everybody's willing to do different things and there's different methods. So that's what we did together. And a week passes by and he comes back to the session. He's like, "We haven't fought at all since our last session." And I was like, "Well, that's interesting." And, like, our session was not about that, actually. Like, we actually had a whole different topics. Remember, his goal was 10K to 20K. And we were focused on that and reprogram his brain for that. And then another week comes by and he goes, "Eric." And I love it when people say my name like that. "Eric," as if I'm in trouble. And I'm like, "Okay, what's up?" And he goes, "Eric, you wouldn't believe it. My father has completely changed. He is easygoing. We are laughing. We're making jokes. He's even going to come see me in the city. Like, he is a whole different type of person." And I'm sounding a little bit Southern because I'm remembering the story. And I was like, "I'm not shocked." I was like, "Have you been doing the work?" And he goes, "Yeah, but I didn't, completely believe it, to be honest with you, Eric. It sounded a little woo-woo." And I was just like, "Okay, okay. But did it work?" And he goes, "Well, yes. Like, we've never had a better relationship." And that was beautiful. I love that story. I love telling that story. I've told it a couple of different times, when it matters. So with that, conflict is not bad, but you can also rewrite conflict if it's already occurring. Like, if you got yourself in the rabbit hole, we can get you out. Like, again, that is one of my specialties. Get you out of the rabbit. So last but not least, I have one more statement, and it is you will deserve success more if you worked hard and you'll know how to keep it because you earned it through trial and error. This one has a lot to do with like fear, right? Some people think that like they can work their whole lives to get to the top, but then they have to maintain that success. And it could be taken at any moment, and they just get into this fear mentality of maintenance. And the truth is that the roller coaster ride can be as quick up as it is down, but it doesn't have to be a roller coaster that you choose, right? You can choose the lazy river. And you can be on the lazy river all day long, living your successful life in your tube, right? And there'll be experiences, but if you truly understand that you are the architect of your life, you will always be able to write the new story and change the story. You can pivot careers, you can pivot relationships, you can do so much. when you understand you're the architect. So I actually took all of these statements, and when I was in the flow state this morning, realized that these statements really have to do with self approval as well as self validation. And when you stop relating struggle and success to your self approval and your self validation, you're going to understand that you can take struggle out of the equation because you're already enough. You're already worthy. You're already deserving exactly as you are. This is something that kind of releases you from the mindset of having to earn your keep, right? You're already worthy. You already provide. And this is freedom. Freedom is internal. Freedom is a mindset. When you free yourself from the struggle and start relaxing into success, you enter into flow state. Your mind, neuroscience, again, neuroscience is one of my specialties. Your mind, when it is in struggle, activates the amygdala processing center of our brain. That is fear that creates what's called tunnel vision in our brain. And physically, our senses, our eyes, our ears, and even some of the things that we touch will be activated in the amygdala. And we will start having tunnel vision and not being able to see the vast amount of opportunities available for our success. This is why you have to start relaxing into success through a lot of self concept work, through rewiring your brain, through hypnosis, through working with air, shamelessly plugging myself in there, because we can actually start rewriting this narrative to where it doesn't have to be a struggle. The worthiness is coming from within, and the freedom, which is what we're all looking for when it comes to success, is the freedom feeling that, okay, now I can relax into this because it's internal. You're allowing the gates to open. And that was my entire flow state of waking up from 4 a.m. all the way to now it's like 9 a.m. and I am wired for this day. You would think that I had already accomplished everything I needed to accomplish, but now I'm going to step into even more goodness with my clients, goodness with these events. So I love what I do. I'd love to work with you. I'd love to be part of your journey. If you want to hop on the NeuroSelf train, it's just neuroself.io. If you want to look at a couple of the sessions, again, a lot of this work today is done in 6 sessions. We can start reprogramming in 1 session, and that is beautiful. You'll definitely leave with something amazing awareness in your first session, along with some techniques for that awareness. But reprogramming something like this, probably 6 sessions, and you're solid. You're good to go. Like truly rewired. And then also, if you want to work together, you can find me on Instagram, on TikTok. It's just Eric Kramer. Of course, NeuroSelf has an Instagram as well. You'll be able to find that. I love being able to speak about this. You have a corporate event coming up, a speech, a conference. I'm there for it. I would just love to meet you and be able to help yourself as well as your teams, your family, you name it. Okay. So until then, go and check me out on medias. And of course, remember that you're not broken, you're just patterned.